Welcome to Mountain Rambler. Turn it up. How's that? A little bit better? Cool. More? I'm trying to speak into it as much as I can. Okay, this is max volume. My name is Everett Phillips. I'm a forecaster at the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center. Okay, that's as much as we got. So I'll just try to speak up as much as I can. In the back here, we have board members, administrative managers, the other forecasters, Steve Mace, Clancy Nelson. Raise your hands. If you guys have questions about what's safe to ski right now, just take a photo of your line and go over those gentlemen right there and ask, when should I drop in? They'll give you a really good thought out answer. And they might even go out there with you. Okay, so we're here for an education and outreach event. How many of y'all plan to come here and listen to me talk? Okay. Most of the room, I'm very sorry for those of you who came here to just focus on the beer and the food, but you can do both. So the presentation we've got here tonight is called Maximizing the Avalanche Forecast. And what it's all about is what we do for you here at the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center to make your backcountry adventures easier, better, more fulfilling. And then the second part is really what you can do to help yourself through our services, how you can make the avalanche forecast better. Okay, how many people have been out skiing this week? How was it? I mean, I think it was better than that, but this is what an all-time looks like to me, especially for around here. What about snowmobilers? Any snowmobilers in the yes? All right. Face shots on the snowmobile? Yes. Okay. Any weird sounds in the snowpack? Cool. Did you get stuck? All right. What about ice climbers? Anyone been out ice climbing yet this season? Raise your hands. I guess the snow's too good. Okay. All right. Well, let's roll right into it. I'm pretty psyched to be in Bishop. I don't know who can see the screen up there, but that's a magazine that no longer exists. It was really good when it did. It was based out of Truckee, and it was Sierra-centric. And as I was flipping through the pages of one of my back issues getting psyched for this season, I happened to see this passage in an article about being a weekend warrior. And what it says up there is that it's not great to live where the mountains aren't. And if you scroll down through the paragraph, not everyone gets to be industry professionals, sponsor athletes, and those that are just lucky enough to live and work at the base of Mount Humongous. But what about the rest of us? Let's face it, as cool as it might be to live in Fernie, which is in British Columbia, and that'd be cool, Verbier, which is in France, or Bishop, California is on the list of the coolest places to be, and it still is. I just think telemarketing isn't as hot right now, and people haven't realized that it's just as good on pin bindings. But this is the place to be. This is the place to be this week. And so I think this zone really deserves the best avalanche center that it can get. And the reason we're out here trying to talk to all of you is that it really depends on you. Like, first of all, your support financially, donations is important, but also the communication that we have with each other. You know, just that little bit back and forth with the gentleman who's sledding out there, that is like worth me coming down here tonight already. And maybe I'll stop and talk to him about where he's been and what he's been seeing out there. And that's going to help me do my job better. Believe it or not, it's that simple. So let's maybe spend the rest of the night talking about the more formal ways that we communicate through the Forecast Center's website and the products. All right. So my best day out last season started on a snowmobile with that guy at the Buttermilks. And headed towards that beautiful mountain in the background, which is like a poster child for cool lines and cool places. And then once the snowmobile got stuck, we put on our skis and kept going and going. And that's what this place has to offer. But you know what I see up there from a professional perspective is a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of real estate up there and it's pretty steep. And anything that falls off anywhere in that photo is headed for us. Luckily, this was during a period of high pressure and good stability in the mountains, which lasted for most of last season. So let's hope that doesn't happen again. But those questions about what's going on in all those different places, all those cool places, all those ridges and gullies, that's what drives what we're doing. And hopefully we can help you guys get your answers to those questions. So what we do here is make avalanche forecasts. That's what we're geared toward, getting the information for them. And so here's the video from the National Avalanche Center that is going to help you understand what an avalanche forecast is better than I could explain it.
Snow avalanche danger changes season to season, month to month, and day to day. In other words, each day is different. Avalanche forecasters track snowpack and weather conditions and provide daily avalanche forecasts for many mountainous areas in the United States. Avalanche activity is controlled by the interaction of three complex factors: the terrain, the weather, and the snowpack. Whether you are new to the backcountry or a seasoned professional, the avalanche forecast aims to make this complex subject as easy to understand as possible. The information in the forecast begins with simple summary messaging and progresses to more detailed, specific information. The first and most basic component of the forecast is the bottom line. This is take-home messaging for everyone, regardless of avalanche knowledge. The bottom line gives you simple information about three basic avalanche questions. What is it? Where is it? And what should you do about it? Think of it as a soundbite or a summary of the most important information for the day. Next is the avalanche danger rating. The scale consists of 5 ascending levels. Your chance of encountering an avalanche increases dramatically with each level. Many avalanche forecasts provide danger ratings for 3 elevation bands. For example, in this view, the danger is rated at considerable at all elevation bands. And in this view, the danger is considerable in the upper band and moderate in the middle and lower band. For a more detailed tutorial on the avalanche danger scale, go here. Avalanche problems are an extension of the danger rating. Avalanches come in many shapes and sizes. Avalanche problems allow you to better visualize and understand the avalanches you may encounter. This section illustrates the type of avalanche, where that avalanche exists in the terrain, how likely you are to trigger it, and how big it will be. This set of graphics is often accompanied by written descriptions and media that help illustrate or explain it. For a more detailed tutorial on avalanche problems, go here. The forecast discussion is an important catch-all where forecasters may provide more specific information on the snowpack, avalanche cycles, complex conditions, or other interesting topics that dive deeper into the what is it, where is it, and what should you do about it questions. Lastly, a mountain weather section is included because it plays such a critical role in both avalanche formation and trip planning. This section provides a basic overview of both the recent weather and the weather you may encounter. Each day is different. The avalanche forecast is an important starting point in your winter planning process. You are in charge. You make the choice. Visit avalanche.org to find the avalanche forecast for your area.
Okay, so the avalanche forecast for your area, that's a map of the east side region right there. And my laser pointer is invisible tonight. So the very bottom corner, do you see where the zone runs into US 6 and US 395? Yeah, that's it. Right, down and right. Oh, sorry. There it is, right there. That's Keel Hot Springs. Yeah, I'm serious. It's a great place to go for a dip. And the dirt hillside above it's actually in the forecast zone. The north side is Dunderberg Mountain. Who's been up there? Yeah, that's about as far north as our forecast applies. This lobe right here, who knows what that is? Shout it out. Yeah, right back here. That's the Minarets, Ritter and Banner. Cool. And down here, this is Bishop Creek. Bishop Pass is kind of this furthest south we go. So that's the spatial scale of our forecast. And daily advisories, I think, Steve, did we set a record this year, the earliest daily advisory? Yeah, so we're working harder this year because the snow is good early, but we're on the clock mid-November to mid-April and issued advisories, conditions permitting. So what it's all about safety-wise and people-wise, and you can't have risk without things exposed to risk, is the actual piece of terrain that you're in. So I just showed you the whole forecast area, and here's a little 20-foot by 60-foot piece of real estate. Does that look like a super safe place? Does that look like a predictable place? No, but it's a place you could go in these mountains. This is out behind where I live. It's part of a larger environment that we're forecasting for. So unfortunately, the zoom's in the way, but this is technical jargon for the smallest terrain feature we identify. Steve's going to help me out because he's better than computers. That was a terrain feature, okay? So an individual geographic feature contained within a larger slope. The next step up on the scale is a large open inclined area with homogeneous characteristics. It's like field size, right? There could be multiple rocks, trees. You could go left or right of the tree and still be on the slope. That's, the kind of size of an area an avalanche might start. And then we have a path or a run. So avalanches start in one place and then they charge down a mountainside. So everything that's connected to the place the avalanche might start, that'd be a path or a run. Put a bunch of path and runs together, wrapping around a geologic feature, and you got a mountain. You guys know what a mountain is, I'm assuming. Put a bunch of mountains together and flow the water downhill, get some erosion going, maybe a glacier historically, and you got a drainage. Enough drainages together, and you've got a region. And the bold text says typical public avalanche forecasting area would be a region. And then the biggest range is, it's a mountain range. So we're part of a larger mountain range. We've got Bloody Couloirs, 150 classic in our range. Keep going south, you get Split Mountain, and you get Mount Whitney, the Mountaineers route. That's the High Sierra range. So we're forecasting for a region, but you are going to make important decisions on a slope or a terrain feature scale. So how do we bridge the gap between the two? So here it is visually. There was that terrain feature that I showed you first. That's a slope up top there. That's McGee Creek Peak. There's a flat slope up top. That's a path or a run. Avalanches could start at the top of that triangular peak and charge down that mountainside. When there's a mountain, that's the Navabi Ridge. And that's the McGee Creek drainage. And if you keep looking back, you get into Rock Creek. And if McGee Creek Peak and the Navabi Ridge weren't there, you'd be looking all the way down towards Bishop, and that'd be the southern part of our region. So how do I make a forecast for an area that big? Well, it starts with a season history. So I'll show you in a little bit on the website where that comes from, but a bunch of weather data, a bunch of daily avalanche hazard assessments, one after the other for weeks or months, and then a history of avalanche activity for the season, that gives us a starting point on which to make our hazard assessment. And where you're going to find that information is in the archives of our website and the weather archives in the weather sensor app. And the scale for that is drainage or region. So in the morning, before I make my forecast at 4 a.m., I start to look at field weather observations. So what you all might have submitted to us as observations on the website. And then I look at weather stations throughout the range. And I combine that with what people have been saying to us when they've been out in the mountains. Do they see signs of instability? What sort of snowpack data do they collect? And then have there been avalanches? And that's probably 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. for me. And that leads into a hazard assessment, which is a nowcast. What's going on right now? Then I've got to layer over that a weather forecast. One for the next 12 hours and one for the next 36 hours. And that'll tell me what I expect to happen to my nowcast going forwards. And then I can share by 7 a.m. an avalanche forecast with you and a mountain weather forecast for the next 12 and 36 hours. All right, so this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you all come in. So how much have you guys been paying attention to conditions in the mountains right now? Raise your hands. Who wants to tell me what's going on in the snowpack right now that's unusual for a maritime snow climate? Like, what are we getting experience with right now? Clancy and Steve, you can answer. Tell me. The best answer is right over here is it's Colorado snow. And luckily, my last job in the business was guiding in Colorado, so I feel pretty good about it. I don't feel good about the snow, but I feel good about working with it. But it's a challenging situation. There's a lot of uncertainty involved when you have weak layers at the base of the snowpack. And so the biggest decision that we had to make as a forecast team this year was to blow the horn of Gondor and say, hey, there's a persistent slab out there. And then we had to decide, where was that persistent slab? Like, is it all over the mountain? Is it on some of the mountain? And that's a big decision because it's one we're stuck with for a while. So I think the three of us had a pretty good idea of where we wanted it to be, but Clancy made us all feel better about it by combing through all of the observations we had this year that included avalanches, signs of instability such as whoops, cracks, and snowpack tests that indicated instability, and put them up on this stability rose with aspect and elevation. And it basically confirmed what we thought, which is what we have up on the website, which is the problem is between the northwest and the east at all elevations. But the important thing to realize is that each of those dots is a single observation. And it looks like a lot of them, but that is really about a month of there being snow in the mountains. And that's a month of people going out and seeing things. And what it doesn't include is maybe the tours where people went out and didn't see signs of instability, didn't see avalanches, and didn't see these things. And so maybe if you doubled the number and put the dots all over the place, that would be how many times people shared their information with us. And you know what? It's a lot. And I'm so grateful for what we've got because I can't do my job without it. But it could be more. I'd love it if it were more. And the real reason that we don't have any dots, you may notice there's no dots on the highest elevation band above 10,500 feet. And I don't think that's because we wouldn't have seen signs of instability there. I think it's because not enough people were getting there. And I think the reason is that those who were motivated were listening to those, you know, to get there, you have to go through the lower elevations to get to the higher ones. This isn't Chamonix and there isn't a tram that takes us to 12,000 feet. So The good news for us is that people were listening and turning back. I know it was hard for me to get up higher because I was getting a lot of feedback from the mountains that it wasn't the day to go there. Cool. So, and show you what's going on there. So give me a second while I shift gears here. Okay, so here's the forecast. It may be hard to read what's up there right now, but I just want to connect what we saw in that last graphic. We've got moderate danger at all elevations. So if you know much about Colorado snow, you know that there's something called scary moderate, okay? That means that the chances of triggering an avalanche are not that high. But if you do trigger one, he wants me to keep going anyway. That's Long's Peak. All right. So I mentioned where it's scary moderate, and the only way you would know that where it's scary moderate and not just at moderate is that you go down to your avalanche problems. That's the persistent slab problem right there, and that's the distribution we just showed you. So what I'm trying to get at is that this is an important message. You may not see a lot of avalanches triggered right now. You may not notice that sign of instability where you're traveling, but there are white sharks out there, and they lurk northwest through east at all elevations. They are possible, and they're large to very large. These are the kind of avalanches you don't want to get caught in. And we wouldn't know that. We couldn't say that without a lot of evidence behind us if it wasn't for your observations this season. So keep them coming. All right. So I was going to show a couple more slides, but I think I'm just going to bag it on the PowerPoint and move right into how you all can submit observations if you're not comfortable doing that yourself yet. So right along the top menu, this website, like all Avalanche Center websites, is a wealth of information, and you can go as deep with it as you want. But one thing everyone who goes out in the mountains on the east side should know is that if you go to observations and scroll down, you can hit submit an observation. Right? And then here's where you can launch the weapon. So the first field, let's just get right down to it. This is uncomfortable, okay? We all go out in the mountains to enjoy ourselves. It's private. We can have an adventure. Things can go wrong. Things can go well. We can have a laugh about it. And it doesn't have to be something official or serious. But all that happens if you put in your name and your email address here is we can get in touch with you if we want to ask some more questions. And you know what we actually do with this most of the time? We mostly write you a really nice thank you email and note down that you submit an observation because you get $5 at Sage to Summit and Mammoth Mountaineering for every observation you submit. So get out in the mountains, fill out this form, make some money. It's not bad. Okay, so email, phone number, observation date, that's really important. Okay, this is a touchy subject. There's a map here. We can collect geographic information system data. All right, we can find out where the really good riding is. Everyone can if you click on the map. I would love it if you did click on the map, especially if you're in an area you're not concerned other people are going to go to or that you need to keep private, because it does give you more information. But secrets out, you don't have to click on the map. You don't have to tell people exactly where you work. Because the cool thing about avalanche science and avalanche hazard is if it's on one mountain on a northeast aspect at 10,000 feet, it's also on the next mountain on northeast 10,000 feet. And that's how we do our job. So if you went out somewhere cool here in Bishop, you don't have to tell everyone that you were there. You can just say in the Bishop Creek area at 9,800 feet on a north aspect, I saw, and you don't have to give up the goods. Okay. You can also do what I do, which is like, if you see one of my observations and it says ski conditions made for efficient travel, translate that to mean blower snow was awesome and I had a really good time and I'm not telling you about it. So feel free to say something like skinny travel was efficient. All right. I've used that 3 times already this year. Location description will end up as the title. That's the field. Sorry, I know you can't see the text. That says location description. Whatever you put here will become the title of your observation. So oftentimes, like for my most recent tour with efficient travel, I said Bishop Creek, wind drifted snow. That was the title. And the bottom line was that the wind had put the snow in certain places and not in others. And then for the public observation, the comments section, this is where you get to write your essay. You don't have to. You can write 1 sentence, you can write 10. Really, it's all about the message you want to give to everybody else that's going to see it. And it can be simple as, look out, I saw an avalanche at 10,000 feet on a north aspect. Give us the context, tell us what's going on. And then this is where it's like a survey and it's really easy. These are signs of instability. Up top, we have, did you trigger avalanches? Did you see any avalanches? Did you see shooting cracks? Did you experience collapsing or woofing? Who knows what a woof is? Colorado Snowwood knows what a woof is. If you don't know what a woof is, just go ski touring right now in Bishop or Virginia Lakes and you'll find out what a woof is. The snow is giving us signs of instability. It's a collapse. The top layer of snow crushes air out of the bottom of lower layers of snow, and it's a scary feeling. All right. So you check yes or no on those boxes. And that tells us where to put our hazard, really. Uploading photos. Okay, this is a big one because sometimes you don't know exactly what to write, but you saw something. What if you saw an avalanche? You don't know what the size on the danger scale is. You got to put that out there. You can just snap a photo of what you saw, and that's helpful. All right. Okay, give me a second to pull back on my PowerPoint. This is technical for me.
Mine is similar to that. Really, no, they took it. You want to go back to your. No, my. Research there. There's this Yeah, but it's not shared. How do I get back?
All right, we're back after a brief interlude. This is the Bear Scratch Couloir above Lake Tahoe. It's kind of cool to be at the top of outer snow line and look down at water that looks like in the Caribbean. But so we're back to, we've got the forecast, we know how to be responsible, we read everything, and like, what's going to happen now that I'm there? And the only way to get to being able to forecast slopes and terrain features is experience. But experience by itself doesn't provide an objective framework to make the best use of your information and the communication that other people are giving you. And so you need to train yourself. And the best way, I think, as a starting point is take an avalanche course. Who in here is taking an avalanche course? Nice, a couple, but like way less than went out in the mountains recently. That's okay, I get it. They're time consuming, they're expensive, and sometimes they're really fun and sometimes they're work. But it's worth taking one because it really opens up more opportunities to you. But then after that, or even before that, or at the same time as that, this is getting to be a broken record. But there's a reason I'm saying this. The only way you get to be able to sort through the information that I just put up on that screen, and that's what should be in observations eventually, is to practice. And practice means getting things wrong sometimes, right? So what you can do is you can look at Steve's observations. Steve's been an avalanche forecaster for a long time. Actually, all three of us have been in this business for more than 10 years. And you can read our observations and you can just say, okay, like, it looks like Everett actually tried today, so I'm going to call that an A. And I'm going to compare what I do to that. That's how I started. I read what the avalanche forecasters wrote, and I tried to go out and look at the mountains with that lens. You don't have to tell your friends that are the cool kids that you're doing it. You just pay attention while you're out there. When you go home, you rack your brain, you try to get your thoughts together and put something in there. And what happens is you get to a place where you can tell how what you saw on that small terrain feature relates to the whole region. And then tomorrow, when you look at the forecast for the region, you have a better idea of what to expect on the small terrain features that you're going to make decisions on. Yeah. So there's a last note there. You see accidents and close calls. Boy, that's even more uncomfortable, right? Because we've gotten to a place where avalanche safety, like, look at how many people showed up to listen to me talk about snow stuff, right? It's popular these days. So that means if you get smoked in an avalanche, you weren't like cool enough to be savvy. It's not true. They're accidents, and we don't victim shame in our community. As a matter of fact, people who survive these accidents, they're people with really important experience that we can all learn from. So this can be sensitive, and not everyone feels comfortable sharing their accident in the same way. You know, I have some really good friends who went through a really challenging time because the community was judging them for an accident that they were involved in. And I've seen better people come out the other side of it. So if you want help sharing the details of an accident, maybe you got it figured out and you know what you want to say, you can email us, and trust me, we'll get with you and we'll talk you through it. Even if you don't end up wanting to share, just learning from what your experience will help us do our jobs better. You just forward one slide real quick. The last slide I have is just our email address. And then I want to take questions. It's not the best environment for question and answer, but we'll do our best. And then even better, I'll just have another beer and you guys are welcome to come say hi to me or Clancy or Steve and check out the merch booth. So that's all I've got. Thanks very much. Raise your hand if you got a question.
Fairgrounds. In the last,
Okay, so the persistent weak layer we have in the snowpack is the December 1st persistent weak layer. I have a guy I worked with, he's got long hair, and he thinks he's pretty cool, and he called it Everett's crust on a private Instagram video, and that just got worse and worse for me. I'm sorry.
the question is, what the last big storm cycle did to help overcome that?
Yes, that's a really good question. So in general, in the short term, it made things more unstable because when you have a weak layer in the snowpack, what it doesn't like is a sudden jolt with extra load. So lots of new snow, and we're still seeing evidence of how that new weight, the persistent weak layer is still kind of adjusting and trying to hold it. We're still in that phase. We went from high to considerable, and now we're at moderate, but we're still seeing signs that people can affect that weak layer. Now, in the Mammoth area, we got a lot of snow. And so in the Mammoth area, there's a lot of snow between your snow machine, your skis, your mountain boots, and the layer. And so triggering is more unlikely, but in the Mammoth area, if you did trigger it, it would be bigger. Outside of the Mammoth area, I think we're still in a very dangerous place. The dangerous place is when the persistent weak layer is less than a meter from the snow surface. It's not less than a meter everywhere. I was out around Bishop here where I thought the snow would be thinner. And in a lot of places, I was more than a meter from the weak layer, but there were definitely places where I was closer to it. So I think long-term, more snow will help, but we're not out of the woods yet. Good question. And the crust isn't everywhere. You know, some places it's just the new fallen snow on top of facets. It's mostly at the lower elevations where we got a bit of a warm up before the latest storms that have a crust. So good question.
So based on your experience in other snowpacks, can you speculate a little bit, if we do come into an extended dry period, with at least 2 weeks, possibly longer, are we going to see possibly some healing because of that settlement? Or what could we see with the over an extended dry period?
Yeah, so those are really good questions. All right, okay, so if we don't get a new load, that's what he means by 2 or 3 weeks of dry weather. If we don't get a new load, what happens? Do things get better? Actually, I think they don't get better and they don't get worse. Because in the Mammoth area, the snowpack's deep enough that the weight, and this is where it gets a little scientific. Healing is a very rough way to say it, but things could get better where the snow is deeper during a dry period. But if we had another load, I think we'd still worry. In other areas, I don't think a dry period helps or hurts us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so another awesome question. It's about spatial distribution. It's about spatial distribution on a regional scale. And the thing that's really interesting about this early season is that the three of us aren't the only Avalanche professionals. And like, it's not just the Avalanche professionals here on the east side that are worried about the snowpack. It's pretty much universal. Like the same observations in Tahoe are the same observations we have here. It's eerily similar. And from my experience, and I think these guys will nod their heads as well, that's a bad sign. When you have avalanche centers, ski patrols, guide services across the Mountain West talking about the same date and the same layer, that's like, they're not trying to entertain themselves. So yeah, it's out there. I think how far south is a good question. It's definitely all the way to the bottom of our forecast area. Like, and it's definitely up to Virginia Lakes. Yeah. Cool. All right. Off belay.